Now, here's the thing, I didn't realize I was burnt out until year 10. Not because I wasn't burnt out, no, but because I kept telling myself I was fine. Something like it's just a rough year, or it's just this group of kids, or everyone feels the same way. By the time I admitted I was burnt out, I'd been burnt out for at least 3 years, or maybe longer. Hey everyone, I'm Keith. I have 14 years of classroom experience in multiple countries and just transitioned into data analytics. And today, I'm going to show you the 5 early warning signs I missed and the ones you need to watch out for if you want to save yourself before it's too late. Because here's the truth, if I'd caught it earlier, I might have been able to fix it. Like better boundaries, different schools, changed grade levels, but I didn't catch it early. I caught it late. And by then, my only option was to leave. If you catch burnout early, you can do something about it. Because here's the lie you're telling yourself right now. This is just what teaching feels like. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's stressed. This is normal. Well, it's not. And I know you're telling yourself this because I told myself the same thing for 3 years. Every time I felt the dread on Sunday nights, I think, well, everyone hates Monday. Or every time I snap at a student over nothing, I think, these kids are more difficult this year. And every time I stop caring about things I used to love, I think I'm just getting more realistic about what matters. But here's what was actually happening. I was normalizing dysfunction. I was taking symptoms of burnout and reframing them as part of the job. Because if it's normal, then I don't have to do anything about it. I can just keep pushing through. The problem is, burnout doesn't feel like burnout when you're in it. It feels like personal failure. It feels like you're not strong enough, not organized enough, not resilient enough. It feels like everyone else is handling this just fine and you're the problem. But burnout isn't personal failing. It's what happens when you give more than you have for too long in a system that takes everything and gives nothing back. And the earlier you catch it, the more options you will have. So let's talk about the 5 signs, and I want you to keep count. Because if 2 or more applies to you, you're not getting burned out. I think you're already there. The first early sign is that Sunday nights feel wrong. Sunday nights used to be fine for me. I'd spend time with my wife, maybe plan for Monday's lesson, watch a movie, no big deal. But then year 10 arrived, and something shifted. Around 4 p.m. every Sunday, I'd feel this heaviness settle in my chest. This dread, like I was being dragged towards something. And it will build. By 8 p.m., I'd be lying in bed wide awake, thinking about Monday, the lessons I hadn't finished, the emails I hadn't answered, the student I know was going to give me shit first period. I'd tell myself, everyone hates Monday, and this is normal. But it's not normal. If you're dreading Sunday nights, if that feeling is starting earlier and earlier in the weekend, that's not normal job stress. That's anxiety. And it's one of the earliest measurable signs of burnout. Research shows that chronic dread about work isn't about the job being hard. It's your nervous system reacting to a threat. Now here's a test for you guys. Think about next Sunday night right now. Really picture it, like 5 p.m. You've got about 12 hours until you have to be at school. How do you feel? If your chest tightens, if you feel that wave of dread, if your first thought is, I don't want to think about that, you're already in burnout territory. The problem is that your body has learned to associate your job with threat. And that's not something you can boundary your way out of. The second early sign is that you're irritable to people you used to like. By year 11, I started noticing something. A student would ask me a question, a totally reasonable one, and I feel this flash of irritation. Like, are you serious? I literally just explained this to you. Or a colleague would stop by my room to chat, and I think, can you leave me alone? Can't you see I'm busy? Or a student would make a joke, that kind of joke that used to make me laugh, and I shut them down. I wasn't being cruel, but I was cold, impatient, annoyed by the things that never used to bother me. And I told myself, these kids are more difficult this year. Or this class is needier, or my colleagues are more demanding. But the kids weren't the problem. I was. Here's what was actually happening. I was running on empty. And when you're running on empty, everything feels like too much. A reasonable question feels like an interruption. Or a friendly chat feels like a burden. Or a student needing help feels like one more thing you have to deal with. In psychology, this is called compassion fatigue. It's what happens when you've given too much empathy, patience, and emotional energy that you literally have nothing left. And the scary part, you start resenting people for having normal human needs. At first, I didn't recognize this as burnout. I thought I was becoming more realistic, more boundaried, or less of a pushover. But I wasn't setting boundary. I was shutting down. So here's another test for you guys. Think about your students, like really picture them. Are you genuinely happy to see them walk into your room? Or do you feel this low level irritation when they need something from you? If it's the latter, you're probably burnt out. So what are you gonna do about that? Well, this is harder to fix than Sunday dread because it's not about time management. It's about emotional depletion. You need real recovery, not just a 3-day weekend, not just a mental health day. You need weeks or even months to refill. And if you can't get that while teaching, and let's be honest, you probably won't, that's a sign that the job itself is a problem. Early sign number 3. You've stopped doing things you used to enjoy. When I started teaching, I was a teacher who did extra stuff. I ran a math club, I decorated my classroom with student work, I created elaborate projects, I made learning fun because I wanted to and not because I need to. But somewhere around year 12 where I stopped all of it. Like no more clubs, no more decorations, just worksheets, notes, exit ticket, and then done. And I told myself, you know what, I'm just being more efficient. I'm prioritizing what actually matters. But that wasn't it. I'd stopped doing these things because I didn't have the energy to do them anymore. And more importantly, I didn't care enough to find the energy. Teaching had stopped being a craft for me. It became a grind, something I had to survive, not something I wanted to be good at. In psychology, they call this depersonalization. It's one of the 3 core components of burnout. You stop seeing your work as meaningful and start seeing it as a series of tasks you have to complete to get through the day. And here's the insidious part. You don't realize it's happening. You think you're just being realistic or working smarter. But what's actually happening is you're detaching emotionally because caring too much hurts. Okay, test number 3. Think about what you used to do when you first started. The things that you did because you wanted to. Are you still doing any of them? If the answer is no, or I can't even remember what those things were, you're probably burnt out. So what can we do about that? Well, you can try adding those things back. Maybe if I just decorate my room again, I'll feel better. But here's the truth. If you don't genuinely want to do them, forcing yourself won't help. It only adds to your resentment. This sign usually means you're past the point of small fixes. Something bigger needs to change. Like different school, different role, or leaving entirely. Early sign number 4. You fantasize about escape. On my 4th year of the J1 visa program, I started having these intrusive thoughts. I'd be in the middle of teaching and suddenly think, what if I walked out right now? Or I'd be driving to school and think, or what if I called in sick for a week? Or I'd be lying in bed at night and think, what if I just quit? What if I send an email right now and said, I'm done? They weren't serious plan. I wasn't actually going to do any of those things. They were just, fantasies. Little escape scenarios that would pop into my head multiple times a week. I told myself, everyone thinks this sometime and this is just normal. But it's not normal fantasizing about escape multiple times a week. Because here's what's actually happening. Your brain is trying to solve a problem. The problem is that you're trapped in a situation you can't tolerate. So your brain starts running simulations, ways out, exits, escape routes. It's not that you actually want to abandon your responsibilities. It's that your brain is desperately trying to figure out how to make the pain stop. And the frequency tells you how serious the problem is. So here's test number 4, guys. How often do you think about not teaching anymore? If it's more than once a week, you're probably burnt out. If it's daily, you're deep in burnout. And if it's multiple times in a day, then you're in crisis. So what are you going to do about that? If you're already in crisis, then you need to start making a real plan. Not, I'll think about leaving someday, but I'm going to actively work towards an exit. Because your brain is telling you you cannot sustain this and you need to listen. Early sign number 5 is your body is breaking down. This is a sign I wish I paid attention to earlier. During my 3rd year in my G1 visa program, I started having heart palpitation. My heart was racing, skipping beats. It would happen in the middle of nowhere, middle of class, while sitting on a desk, just randomly. And when the doctor checked my heart, they discovered that I had a heart condition and that the stress is contributing to it getting worse, and that I need to undergo a surgery sooner or later. But before the heart palpitation, there were other signs I ignore. I gained 30 pounds and I told myself I was just getting older. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake at 2 a.m. replaying the day, planning the next day, or worrying about the students. I told myself that that's just teaching. I got sick constantly. Every cold that went through the classroom, I caught it. My immune system was shot. I told myself I work with kids. Of course I'm sick. I had no energy. Even on weekends, I was exhausted. And I told myself everyone's tired. It's not just me. I dismissed all of it because if I acknowledged that something was seriously wrong, I had to do something about it. And I wasn't ready, to be honest. Looking back, all five signs were there by year 10 or 11, or during my second year of my J1 visa program, but I didn't connect them. I treated each one of them as separate, isolated problem. I always think that I just needed a better time management, or I just needed to be more patient, that I just need to simplify my teaching, or I just need a vacation, or hell, I just need to lose weight by exercising. I kept trying to fix individual symptoms instead of recognizing the pattern. The pattern was I was burnout, and here's why we miss it. And this is important to pay attention. Burnout doesn't feel like burnout. It feels like personal failure. Saying something like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not organized enough. We always blame ourselves instead of recognizing that we are in a system designed to burn people out. The psychologist Herbert Furgenberger, I'm pretty sure I butchered the name, but he coined the term burnout in 1970. He described it as the extinction of motivation or incentive, especially where one's devotion to a cause or relationship fails to produce the desired results. You're devoted, you're working hard, you're giving everything, but it's not producing the results you hope for. The kids aren't all succeeding. The system isn't getting better. Your efforts aren't making the difference you thought they would. And slowly, your motivation dies. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to solve a problem you were never equipped to solve the resources that you were given. You didn't fail. The system failed you. And it's making you feel guilty for not being able to fix problems that were never your responsibility in the first place. Okay, let's do this. So you go through the 5 signs again. Does thinking about next Sunday make your chest tight? Or do you resent students for needing things from you? Do you stop doing things you enjoyed? Have you quit doing extra stuff you used to love? Do you fantasize about escape? Or do you think about not teaching anymore at least once a week? Did you develop a physical symptoms, like probably a stress-related issue? So how many of those apply to you? 0? You're probably fine. Keep doing what you're doing. 1? Then you need to pay attention. That's your early warning system. Address it now before it spreads. 2 or more, you're not getting burnt out. You are burnt out right now, today. And you need to make a decision. Are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to keep telling yourself you're fine until you're in crisis? I ignored the signs for 3 years. And by the time I couldn't ignore them anymore, by the time I was having the heart condition in the middle of class, my only option was to leave. Don't be me. Catch it early. Do something about it while you still have the option. But don't just keep pushing through and hope it gets better. Because it won't. Burnout doesn't resolve itself. It escalates. Also, can we talk about just how wild the teacher narrative is for a second? In any other profession, if you told your boss, I'm burnt out or I need help, they'd be like, okay, let's figure out how to redistribute your workload. In teaching, if you're getting burnt out, you get, have you tried yoga? Or maybe you need a better self-care. Something like teaching is hard, but it's worth it. Remember your why. They're saying it as if the problem is that you're not stretching enough and that you forgot why you became a teacher. The problem isn't your mindset. The problem is that you're doing the job of 3 people with the resources of half a person while being blamed for systemic failures. But sure, yoga, that will fix it. Look, I want to be honest with you about something. Recognizing these signs doesn't magically fix them. I recognized I was burned out in year 10. I didn't leave until year 14. Because knowing you're burnt out and actually doing something about it are two different things. It took me 4 years to finally admit that small changes weren't going to fix it. That switching grade levels or trying different classroom management or practicing self-care weren't addressing the actual problem. The actual problem was the job itself, the system, the impossible expectations and the lack of support and the constant guilt for not doing enough. And once I recognized that, I had to make a choice. Either stay and accept that this is what my life will be or leave and build something different. I choose to leave. And it took 18 months of preparation before I could actually do it. So if you're recognizing these signs in yourself right now and feeling overwhelmed, like, great, now I know I'm burnt out, what am I supposed to do about this? I get it. And the thing is, you don't have to quit tomorrow. You don't have to have a plan right now. But you do need to stop telling yourself you're fine. Because you're not fine. And pretending you are is only making it worse. Start somewhere. Start a boundary. Talk to someone who's left. Research what else is out there. Do something that acknowledges the reality of the situation. The signs are there. You just have to be willing to see them. If you're recognizing these signs and you're starting to think, I might need to leave, but I don't know how to do it without making everything worse, then watch this video next because I shared 5 steps to start preparing for a career change. I'll see you in the next one.